Welcome to the Mobile County Public Schools Athletic Show. My name's Brad Lowell, Athletic Director of the Mobile County Public Schools. We're here kicking off a new year, new season, 2019-2020 season. We're here with the voices of Mobile County Public Schools, Corey LaBounty and Al Weeden. I appreciate y'all coming in today and being here. Hey, we're here. It's that time.
Always that time
and,
of year.
It's an exciting time of year, and I know everybody's kind of been ramped up and preparing all summer long. Actually been preparing since last year in November or whenever their season ended, getting ready for now. So let's talk about our kind of preseason show this year that we're doing, that we started last year with, just kind of building up the season and what to expect and kind of recapping last year a little bit. I know the Alabama High School Athletic Association this year has instituted a new rule change. It seems like we have something each year that comes out. This time it's with the clocks. Can you tell us a little bit about the clocks?
Yeah, it's a situation to where they're kind of going to model the college rule to where you have the 40-second play clock that will be in effect as soon as the ball is ready for play. As soon as the play ends, the 40-second clock, as soon as they get the ball spotted at the line of scrimmage, it will start play. So it will speed the game up a little bit. And I'm looking forward, and I know the coaches have to adjust. If you're a play caller offensively, defensively, you're going to have the next play called in and ready to go.
I mean, it seemed like on the college ranks, which had instituted a couple of years ago or last year, it seemed to run smooth. I mean, what is your thoughts behind it?
I think it'll run smooth for the high school as well, because a lot of these offenses are, you're going to call them high up-tempo offenses anyway. I didn't see very many delay of game calls last year where, the kids are running out the 25-second clock. But for the most part, I think it'll be a seamless transition for high school, Brad.
Right. It should be. I mean, I'm the same way. I think it'll be a seamless transition. Yeah. Like you said, a lot of these guys, they like to play up tempo anyway, so that clock doesn't even matter to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting to just kind of see how it works. Also, this year, we've heard and you've seen a lot on TV with the heat. And the heat does play a huge part, especially early in the year before teams start playing. I mean, your kids and all the kids have to get acclimated to the heat. And I know as coaches and parents and even the student athletes, the first thing you have to do is make sure of their well-being and their safety. And we have things in effect. Can you kind of elaborate on how the heat's been and kind of what they're doing?
I know last week the heat index reached 122 degrees here along the Gulf Coast. So when you're talking about those extreme temperatures, you want to make sure that the players are well hydrated. But I tell you what, the state does a wonderful job in mandating safety courses for these head coaches, for these trainers, making sure the trainers are on site, and the emergency action plans that are in effect. Dale County had a young man, the first practice to go down within the first 10 minutes of practice, and the coaches made sure that they had everything in place to go ahead and save that young man's life. Right. And nothing's different here in the Mobile County Public School systems. All schools have defibrillators. They're very well equipped. The trainers are on site to make sure that all the players are hydrated properly and make sure if they show any signs of heat stroke or any type of symptoms that they're taken care of immediately.
Yeah, Al, I mean, it's hot.
Oh, yeah, it is. And the one great thing that the Alabama High School Athletic Association mandates, the first 5 weeks of the season, you have heat timeouts at the first dead ball under 6 minutes.
Right.
So Corey and I are used to getting what we call 4 free timeouts the first dead ball under 6 minutes. But we had some instances last year where we were into week 6 and week 7, and it was at the discretion of the referee, and they actually called some heat timeouts because we know here in the Deep South, the heat can go on into September, sometimes even October, just depending on how the year is going. So we're used to it, and we're glad that they're going to keep that rule instituted.
And I'm with you. I mean, we live in the South.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be hot every year. And, yeah, there does get times where it gets a little hotter than normal, which is, brings kind of those extreme heat indexes. But like Corey said and you said, I mean, our coaches, they are trained in not only how, to take care of the kids and what to do as far as in preparation of any type of heat illnesses or anything that transpires, but also, for the footmost, I mean, their main objective is the safety of our student athletes. Right. And so they're going to take those extra precautions at practice whether it's extra water breaks, whether it's extra downtime in between drills, whether it's cutting a practice a little bit short, than they normally would go. I mean, there's all kind of measures in place, and that goes back to, like you said, just the education part of it that the state requires, and having an athletic trainer on site also helps prevent a lot of those preventable measures. But everybody has an emergency action plan in place. It's built around AEDs that they have on site. And so we do everything we can to make sure our student athletes are safe. But also the kids have to get acclimated.
It's true.
Because they're going to play in it, aren't they?
No doubt about it. I mean, you're looking at 7 o'clock kickoffs. We can't bump the kickoff up to 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock because it's even hotter. 7 o'clock as the season goes along, the sun starts to go down a little bit earlier, but you're exactly right. You want to practice in conditions, in game-like conditions, because most teams, you'll start to see the most cramps in the first couple of weeks, even for the officials who are out on the field, because they play an integral part in the game as well. But just staying hydrated and making sure you stay as cool as possible and staying off your feet when you're not playing the game is very important also.
And I have to back up what Corey said. We're not down on the field, but Corey and myself, we're taking our water breaks upstairs too, Brad. So we're trying to stay hydrated because at a lot of the games, the facilities, we're on top of the press box. So we're outside in the elements just like the kids are. Sun's beating down on us. Corey's got his rag wiping his forehead, but we're drinking our water just as well. So the key to that is you have to start drinking water before you start playing. You have to get used to it. So that's something we do leading up to game day ourselves.
And I've seen
we're building up water.
And what's funny, this is 2019-2020 school year, so I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've seen the heat dictate outcomes of the games.
Sure.
Right.
If you haven't prepared for it, been acclimated for it, then it can cause teams to lose if they're not ready, for that element. Right. 2018 season last year was every year is unique. Who do you think, out of our 12 high schools, who would you consider maybe the sleeper that came out of nowhere from last year?
I'm going to go with Davidson. Davidson, Sean Smith did a wonderful job getting Davidson into the first round of the playoffs. Nobody has been able to get over in that 7A hurdle here locally to get that win in the first round of the playoffs. But when you look at what the Warriors were able to accomplish, hats off to them. And it's just a testament to the young kids who were fighting through a lot of adversity and were able to make the playoffs. I think my second biggest surprise was you look at Viger making it all the way to the state championship game and just coming moments away from holding up a blue trophy, moments away. Yeah. So those two teams and two games are situations to where schools that I really thought 2018 was a very good year for them.
Al?
Yeah, I agree with Corey. Davidson was definitely the surprise team of last year. I wouldn't just say Mobile County. I would just say in our whole region. A lot of people expected people were going to dump on Davidson from what they went through last year. And Coach Smith, serving as interim coach, he brought those kids, gave them some resilience, and they fought. In every game, they fought and fought and fought. And every week it was almost a testament to their will to we're going to do better each week, and they end up making the playoffs. And as I sat here last year, I'm not surprised at Viger. It was the year of the Wolves, literally.
That's right.
And they could not be stopped. That defense was awesome, one of the top defenses in the state. And for them to just be seconds away from capturing that victory, I mean, I know that one hurts for the Viger Wolves and Coach Scott.
And we're about to have to go to break, but I'm going to throw out two teams too. Baker and Williamson.
Yes.
I think those are two teams last year that, Williamson just kind of came out of nowhere and ended up making the playoffs.
Right.
And we'll talk more about them as we get to. But Baker started out the year, 0-3.
Yes.
And then they reeled off
5 out of the next
7. 5
7.
out of the next 7. Sure. And so we'll get into those teams in just a minute.
It's a fact. Bullying happens. Bullying can lead to serious physical and emotional pain. But there are some things you can do to prevent or stop it. Stand up for the person who's being bullied. Let the bully know that it's not cool to pick on others. Take action by reporting the bully to a teacher or principal. In the end, when you help someone who's being bullied, you are also helping yourself.
All right, welcome back to our preseason kickoff show. We're going to kind of dig in a little bit and work our way, talking about each school a little bit and for this coming season, some expectations and so forth. So let's start at 4A, Williamson High School. I guess one of the top players in the state all of a sudden, and just going to be a sophomore.
Yeah.
Williamson, I thought was one of those teams that kind of came out of nowhere last year a little bit and actually made it to the first round. Lost a very close game to American Christian.
ACA.
In the first round. Let's talk about Williamson.
Williamson, Robert Woodyard, you just alluded to him, going to be a sophomore this year. The kid is a horse. Oh, my goodness. I mean, he is projected to be the top guy in the next couple of years in his senior class. And you talked about it, Brad, you know, it's kind of a surprise for a lot of people. But for Corey and ourselves, not a surprise for us. The one thing about Coach Sumter and what he has done, he's now the longest tenured coach for the Mobile County Public School System. He has taught discipline. He teaches the 7 teaching progressions of football. And each and every year, they have gotten better and better and better. So I'm not surprised at what Williamson did last year. The one thing that I would say that you get ready for, they went through 4A last year. This year, they're going to be ready. And the game I have circled for them is September 12th. UMS Wright at Williamson at Ladd. UMS Wright defending 4A champion. It might be a shocker that night. It might be a shocker.
I'm with you. When you look at the Williamson Lions, Robert Woodyard, and what Coach Sumter has been able to do with his staff. I mean, he has former Williamson Lions. He added Laretha Douglas to his staff this year. I think that's huge for the community. She has the respect of all those young people because they play park ball for her. She's been the face of not only their parents, but probably their grandparents as well. So Coach Sumter has Jamarcus Russell, Antonio Coleman, and many other people on his staff. And he's mentioned he's only going to be as good as his staff is. And he's paid his dues within 8 years at Williamson. And I think they're going to be a team that's going to compete with UMS Wright. Last year, they lost a heartbreaker at UMS Wright, gave them all they could handle.
That's right.
Now that game being in the backyard this year, looking forward to that matchup.
Well, I tell you too, Coach Sumter is he's an awesome person. And one thing, he has been recognized every year by the Alabama High School Athletic Association for Sportsmanship Award.
Correct.
He's kind of become one of the model schools in the state on sportsmanship. That right there speaks volumes of his character and his expectations of his student athletes, his football players, and the coaches at Williamson. It's a proud tradition there. And the community is really excited about this group. And I know he's very excited about this group. And I can't wait to see what this year's in store for Williamson Lions.
All right.
Jumping to 5A, let's kind of start with LaFleur. We have a new coach coming in this year. Coach Schamberger has left the program, and now we're bringing in Coach Raymond, who is his second stint at LaFleur. LaFleur was a 3-7 team last year. Thoughts on LaFleur?
Yeah, I think Chris Raymond, coming back to his alma mater for the second time around, he wants to instill pride and discipline back in the program. He feels that they had that when he left, and he wants to go ahead and continue that. Derek Dugans will be the dynamic linebacker for him, maybe playing both sides of the football for the Rattlers this year. So, Coach Raymond came in, had a spring with his team, came from Selma back and forth, and decided that he wanted to get that spring in with the Rattlers. So I think that's going to be beneficial for him to have his system in place. I look forward to LaFleur going up this year.
Two things about Coach Raymond. When he was last there, they scored the most offensive points in school history, and he was the last coach to take them to the playoffs. So in a nutshell, I said, Coach Raymond, how's your offense going to be? He said, imagine basketball on grass.
There you go.
So that's all I can say.
And they look pretty good in their spring
They'll be wide
game.
open. Yeah.
So that's something to see. Centennial, Coach Barnett coming in second year, made the playoffs, 6-5 team, lost a pretty close game to Bibb County first round. Thoughts on Centennial?
Yeah, I mean, Jason Barnett, you look at the job that he did at 6-5, a lot of excitement with the Wildcat program. They got off to a hot start early, Brad, and because of it, the expectations of the Wildcat Nation just went through the roof, and that's the type of excitement that you like to see in that type of community. And I think, Coach Barnett, he's got guys in place that are going to get some things done, making it to the playoffs. Once you get that taste of making it to the playoffs, I think that's going to motivate them tremendously.
I agree with you, Corey. Citronelle is on the upswing. Coach Barnett has instilled in them some enthusiasm. He has a community behind him. They got the new gym up there. So the Wildcat Nation, as you talked about, Brad, when they got that taste of the playoff, they're ready to get to the second round.
That's
now.
right.
So I'm expecting big things out of Citronelle this year.
Me too. It's a proud community, and their expectations are high for that program. Viger,
Wow.
A couple seconds away from their state title, lost a ton of kids. But the tradition, they'll be there.
Well, it's a school that's spirit built, and Viger is always going to be on top. They've earned the respect over the years. If Viger's on your schedule, you got to bring your A game. It doesn't matter if you're a 7A team or a 4A team, because they're going to bring it. Now, with losing so many starters, 21 starters total for Coach Scott, he knows this is a tough year. It's not a rebuild. He says it's a refocus.
That's
because the expectations of Viger are so high, Brad. So, like I said, it's a
You
school
don't have
that's
time to
spirit built.
rebuild.
You don't have time to rebuild. So
That's right.
he's going to get those kids refocused. And, of course, as defending region champ for the past 3 years, I expect them to have an impact once again.
That's a big thing about Viger, though. You look at the situation to where even losing in the state championship game and having a lot of new numbers, it's the next person up syndrome for the Viger Wolves. And that's always been the tradition. You may not know somebody's name this year, but when you start off 0-2, 0-3 the way they did a couple of years ago, Coach Scott put no more pressure on himself than himself.
That's right.
And in that situation, Brad, I think that if Viger gets off to a slow start, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Absolutely.
So the Wolfpack, even though they're young early, once they start getting those valuable reps, they'll be a team to watch out for late down the stretch.
And anybody that can rally his troops, that's Coach Scott.
Yeah.
And they are battle tested.
Oh, yes.
So 6A real quick, BC Rain coming off 0-10, new coach, Coach Yelding's there. Red Raiders.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, you have nowhere to go but up. You're 0-10. Your guys are hungry. They want to taste that first win. They want to go ahead and break that streak. You have a group of seniors who are coming in that said they don't want their senior year to be that over. So new life, new bloodlines. Lawrence Yelding coming over from Daphne High School has that state championship pedigree. Even though it was in softball, he was part of the Daphne football program that's been very successful and made the playoffs maybe 20 consecutive seasons. So he knows what it takes, and he's had the Red Raider program working tremendously hard, had them in the spring also, and I think he's going to do a wonderful job.
Yeah, BC Rain, everything Corey said. Everything. That's
right.
it in a nutshell for BC
That's
Rain.
right, and I'm looking forward to Coach Yelding's. He's been around a great program in Daphne for many years, and he has a lot of enthusiasm coming in, and I think he can, he can rally that troops, and I think they may be a surprise to a few teams this year. All right, at this time, we'll go to break. We still have one more 6A team to cover, and then we'll hit the 7A schedule.
The Environmental Studies Center is a natural sciences education facility designed to provide unique learning experiences. In addition, wildlife rehabilitation plays a vital role each day at the center. Featuring more than 500 acres of rich woodlands, the center affords teachers, students, and the general public an opportunity to experience firsthand the natural environment. Environmental Studies Center. It starts with us in the Mobile County Public Schools.
All right, welcome back to our show, and we're still talking about our preseason kickoff show with the upcoming season starting up this Thursday, and we still have one more 6A team to cover, and that's the Blount Leopards. Blount was in a little unique situation last year of sitting home on the first round of the playoffs, but I think that might change this year.
A little motivation for Coach Holly and his Leopards. And you come off a 5-5 season, and you know that they were relatively young last year. And Coach Holly going into the season knew if you were going to get him, you were going to better beat him last year because it's a situation to where coming off that Viger loss for the first time in almost a decade, it just left a salty taste in his team's mouth. The motivation's there. You have Lee Hunter, the dynamic defensive lineman who has Power 5 offers as well. Saw him play on both sides of the football in the spring game against LaFleur. So the Blount Leopards are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, first time they missed the playoffs in 11 years, but it still had to go to the last game of the season. It was a win and get in with them in Daphne because we had them 2 weeks before against Saraland, and they took Saraland to overtime, and we all know Saraland went to the title game last year for
That's
6A.
right.
So Blunt still tried to tough it out because just like Viger, that's a school you got to respect. When they're on your schedule, you got to bring your A game. So Coach Holly, he's a coy guy. He didn't say too much at media days, but he knows what's in front of him. So I'm expecting this is the year that we'll probably go back into the playoffs, which is a quandary for 6A because the past 2 years, Baldwin County has had a winning record and they've been left out. So this is to me the toughest region in the state of Alabama, 6A Region 1.
Absolutely, and I'm with you. I think Blunt's. Nobody's looking. You're never going to look past them.
Right.
No,
you know.
no.
But those kids are battle tested and ready to go for sure. All right, getting into 7A schedule, we'll kind of start with Alma Bryant, who was 0-10 last year. Coach Hain and his staff, expectations down in the hurricane country.
Yeah, I mean, you look down in the bayou, there's a lot of excitement every time football season comes around, Brad, and nobody wants to go 0-10, but that culture, again, it's building what can we do better, and he feels that taking care of the football and eliminating penalties are something that his team can work on, and that's what he's worked on in the offseason.
Right.
So I look for them to improve on those aspects and areas of the game and look forward to covering them this year because, again, Coach Hain and his staff work tremendously hard along with those young student athletes, so they're going to be better this year also.
Yeah, we're going down to south of I-10 for the battle of south of I-10 with Theodore and Bryant down to the
That's
I
right.
later on in the season. And the one good thing about Bryant, it's all about building your future. And sitting right behind them is former Bryant player Brandon Johnson, who's now the head coach at Alba Middle School.
That's right.
So Coach Hain can look forward to some leadership behind him, bringing and getting some kids together. So I don't expect Bryant to have an offer this year. I expect him to get a couple wins.
There you go. Murphy Panthers. Murphy struggled a little bit last year, 3-7 season. Murphy has always traditionally been one of those playoff teams year in, year out.
Yeah.
Transitioned to a new coach. Coach Jackson now has taken the Ram. Expectations about the Panthers.
Coach Jackson, a name that may be unfamiliar to viewers, but a name that's not unfamiliar to the area. Served as assistant coach in this area for years. Coached up in Aliceville, took them to the state title game a couple years ago, and turned around in the Escambia County program. So he knows about championship pedigree. He knows what to do. He's instilling some discipline over at Murphy, and I had a chance to talk to him. He said, Al, if I could run it every play, I run it every play. But he knows he has to throw the ball too.
Right.
So they got new uniforms over there. I think he's trying to instill some character and get Murphy back to what we all know what Murphy was.
I mean, you look at his assistant coaches as well. Tellis Stone, a former head coach.
Right.
Justin Thomas, a former head coach.
Right.
When you have those type of guys and the type of experience he has on his staff, it's only going to make them a stronger unit. The belief that the kids have in guys who have that type of pedigree speaks volumes of it. And I think the Murphy Panthers are going to get back on the right track. Again, you look at just playing in a tough 7A Region 1 to where year to year McGill has really run that region. And again, when you have new life like the Murphy programs do with a new head coach, it just adds numbers to that team as well. So there's a lot of excitement buzzing around the Murphy Panther program.
We talk about sleepers. That might be.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be.
A sleeper. Mary Montgomery, coming off a 4-6 season. Coach McCain seems pretty optimistic about what's ahead for the Vikings.
Yeah, Mary Montgomery, not to drop back down, but kind of reminds me of St. Paul's last year. St. Paul's won a lot of 50-50 games, ended up making the playoffs. Mary Montgomery lost a lot of those 50-50 games, and you end up with a 4-6 record rather than a 6-4 record. It took McGill to overtime. I mean, that was unbelievable, and McGill ended up losing a couple weeks later to Theodore. So they've had opportunities. He just has to, the one thing he has to instill in those kids is the confidence of winning. And he knows that's the challenge. And if they can get that confidence together, MGM may be a team to watch out for.
And you talked about it earlier, Brad, finding a way to finish the game.
That's right.
Through endurance, through the heat, just finding a way not to beat yourselves. Because Al just mentioned that MGM was a couple of plays away from being 6-4 or possibly 7-3. So those situations, those one or two critical plays a game that are defining moments are going to be huge for MGM. And we'll see how they've grown as a program to where they have arrived. Coach McCain is making sure every day of practice that he's instilling in them what it takes not to beat themselves. So I look forward to watching this Viking program this year.
Baker High School. Baker started off 0-3, had a transition as head coach, in comes Coach Norman. Baker finishes winning their 5 out of their last 7 games. Expectations for the Hornets this year?
Very passionate and energetic coach Steve Norman is. I mean, you're start off 0-3, you take over a situation to where you try to put your stamp and your mark on a Baker Hornet program. The kids really started to buy into what he was doing. This summer, he's now had an opportunity to have the guys in the spring. He's going to have an early week 0 game coming up. And then you just look at the situation with numbers for Baker. There's an excitement around the Hornet hooligan program.
That's
and
right.
The student body is always rallied. The community is always rallied around them. So I think the Baker Hornets are going to be in a good situation. And Coach Norman is trying to make the playoffs for the Baker Hornets.
Yeah, he is. Led them to 5 out of 7 wins to kind of finish the season off, got the excitement going. I heard they kind of tweaking the logo a little bit, kind of getting the community, everyone excited. So that Hornets going to have a new look. And I think it's going to be, if you want to call it, a look from a couple of years ago when Baker made the playoffs. So I think they're going to be on a positive uptick this year for Baker.
Davidson. Like we mentioned before, thought probably Davidson was that sleeper that kind of Coach Smith rallied the football program, took them to a playoff berth, round 1. Coach Smith has moved on, and he's now the athletic director of Baker High School.
Right.
Input Coach Cawley, a familiar face. Davidson Warriors this year.
For Davidson, to me, probably one of the toughest schedules to start off. The first 4 out of 5 weeks, they face Thompson, they face Baker, Mary Montgomery, and Fairhope. So they've got a tough road to hoe early on in the season. If they can maybe come out of that, maybe 2-3, 3-2 kind of on those games, that'll get them ready for the back half of the season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of offense Coach Cawley's going to bring in and the excitement again. He's got Cephas Johnson's brother Cedric Johnson on his team, and I think that the Davidson Warriors will probably make the playoffs again this year.
I don't think they're going to be a sleeper this year.
Right,
I think everyone knows what they're capable of, and they'll be gunning for them. But you're right, tough schedule to start the year off in. Let's finish up with Theodore High School, region champs from last year. One of the best players in the state, linebacker. They had a defense coordinator change with Coach Barnett leaving. Coach Little's coming in as their DC. Expectations for the Bobcats are usually always high.
As we talked about, when you look at 6A and a team may get left out, you never know who may get left out of 7A. We've talked about Davidson, we've talked about Baker, we've talked about Theodore now, and we haven't even touched on the private schools and the schools across the bay. Right. For Theodore, I think it's going to be a tough year for them because by getting that region win last year and region championship and a big win over McGill, it was their first region loss in over 3 years, and we covered that game. Very exciting game. I believe the Bobcats are going to have some tough work. They have to identify what the offense is going to be. Defense, they'll be solid, but offense is kind of up in the air right now.
Great leader in DeMoy Kennedy. Looking forward to seeing how he can go ahead and have his influence on the rest of the team.
That's right. Well, guys, man, I can't thank you enough for coming in today. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing you guys Friday nights and ready to go and for the season. That concludes our show, and we'll be back next week.